We live in a world obsessed with perfection. Everywhere we look, we are bombarded with images, messages, and ideals of how we should look, act, and feel. We are told to be confident, beautiful, successful, and likable. But what happens when we don't measure up? What happens when we encounter the parts of ourselves that we consider ugly, weak, or undesirable? These are the parts we hide from the world, and often even from ourselves. But here's the truth that most people never learn. These hidden parts of you, the shadow, are not your enemies. They are your greatest allies. The shadow is the side of yourself that you reject, the impulses, desires, and fears you don't want anyone to see. It is the rage you suppress, the jealousy you deny, the sadness you pretend doesn't exist. Society tells us these parts are shameful, but the reality is that they hold immense power. Within the shadow lies untapped creativity, courage, and insight. By embracing it, you access a wellspring of energy that can propel you forward in ways that your conscious, polished self never could. Imagine for a moment a blacksmith forging a sword. The raw metal, unshaped and imperfect, is nothing on its own. It must be heated, hammered, and tempered. The hammering is uncomfortable, even painful. The fire is scorching. And yet, through this process, the raw metal becomes something strong, sharp, and powerful. Your shadow is like that raw metal. It contains potential. It contains strength. And the act of embracing it, of facing it with courage, is like the forging process that transforms you into your most resilient self. Most people spend their lives running from their shadows. They avoid discomfort, repress anger, and hide their flaws, hoping to fit into the idealized image of themselves they show to the world. But every time you deny a part of yourself, you drain your energy, you scatter your focus, you weaken your capacity for growth. The shadow does not disappear simply because you ignore it. In fact, it grows stronger, festering in silence, until it begins to control you in ways you may not even recognize. Embracing the shadow is not about becoming dark or destructive. It is about acknowledgement. It is about understanding the full spectrum of who you are, including the parts that make you uncomfortable. It is about looking into the mirror and saying, I see you, all of you, even the parts I used to reject. This act alone is liberating. It is transformative. When you accept your shadow, you reclaim the power you had unknowingly surrendered to fear and denial. Consider the moments in your life when you felt most alive, when you tapped into your raw, authentic self. Perhaps it was a moment of rage when you stood up for yourself, a moment of vulnerability when you admitted your fear, or a moment of solitude when you faced your inner doubts. In those moments, you were in contact with your shadow. You were in contact with the unrefined, untamed, and immensely powerful parts of yourself. These are not accidents. These are glimpses of what happens when you stop resisting your own complexity and start embracing it. Embracing the shadow also allows you to see others more clearly. When you recognize and accept the darkness within yourself, you become less judgmental, more compassionate, and more understanding. You stop projecting your insecurities onto the people around you. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from awareness. Your relationships deepen. Your creativity expands. Your life becomes richer because you are no longer living in fragments, trying to be someone you are not. Every great achievement, every act of courage, every creative breakthrough begins with a confrontation with the shadow. Artists, innovators, leaders, they all tap into the parts of themselves that are raw, messy, and often frightening. The shadow is the spark that ignites genius, the fire that fuels transformation. But to access this power, you must first be willing to walk in the parts of yourself that you have long ignored or feared. And so the question is not whether you have a shadow. You do. The question is whether you are willing to face it, to engage with it, to welcome it as an essential part of your being. Every fear, every flaw, every uncomfortable impulse is a doorway to strength. Every hidden, suppressed part of yourself carries a message, a lesson, or a gift. When you embrace your shadow, you stop pretending, you stop striving for superficial perfection, you stop running from yourself. And in that raw, authentic confrontation with your own darkness, you discover a hidden power, an energy, a freedom that cannot be found anywhere else. We are taught from a young age that vulnerability is weakness. We are told to hide our fears, suppress our tears, and never reveal the parts of ourselves that feel fragile. Be strong, society whispers, don't show weakness. And so we build walls, we armor ourselves, and we pretend to be unshakable. But the truth is that these walls do more than protect us. They isolate us. They cut us off from the very source of our greatest strength, vulnerability. Vulnerability is not about being fragile. It is not about being exposed to harm for the sake of pity or sympathy. True vulnerability is the courage to face life fully, to show up. You are, with all of your imperfections, fears, and uncertainties. It is the willingness to be seen, really seen, without hiding behind a mask of perfection or control. And paradoxically, this willingness is one of the most powerful forms of strength a human being can possess. Think about the moments in your life when you allowed yourself to be vulnerable. Maybe it was confessing a mistake at work, admitting a fear to a friend, or opening your heart to someone you trusted. At first, it may have felt terrifying. The possibility of rejection, ridicule, or judgment can make your heart race, your palms sweat, your mind scream for retreat. But in that very moment of exposure, something extraordinary happens. You tap into a reservoir of courage that you didn't know existed. You find strength not despite your vulnerability, but because of it. Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. When you allow yourself to be open and authentic, others respond. They recognize the humanity in you, the courage it takes to show up without pretending to be invulnerable. And in those responses, bonds are formed, trust is built, and relationships deepen. Strength is not measured by the number of walls you can build around yourself. It is measured by the depth of connection you can sustain without fear. Those who embrace vulnerability discover a strength that is relational as much as it is personal. Consider the leaders, artists, and innovators who have changed the world. What do they have in common? They dared to show up imperfectly, to risk failure, to speak truth that might have been uncomfortable or unpopular. They embraced vulnerability as a tool, not a liability. They understood that growth comes not from hiding, but from leaning into discomfort, from allowing themselves to be exposed to uncertainty, from taking risks that required opening their hearts and minds fully to the world. Vulnerability also fuels resilience. It teaches us that fear and discomfort are not enemies to be defeated, but signals to be listened to. When we allow ourselves to acknowledge our doubts, our insecurities, and our pain, we gain insight. We discover patterns, motivations, and truths about ourselves that remain invisible when we are hiding behind a facade. Every time you confront your vulnerability, you grow stronger, wiser, and more adaptable. You stop being fragile in the face of life's challenges because you have learned to move with them instead of resisting them. There is also an incredible creative power in vulnerability. The act of opening yourself to uncertainty, doubt, and raw emotion allows your imagination to flow freely. Artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers all know that their best work emerges when they stop censoring themselves, when they dare to explore the messy, uncomfortable, and unpolished parts of their experience. Creativity demands risk. It demands exposure. And the same is true for living fully, for leading authentically, and for building meaningful relationships. Many of us avoid vulnerability because it scares us, because society has equated it with weakness, because we have been hurt in the past. But hiding does not make us invincible. It only makes us smaller, less capable, less alive. True strength arises when we face our fears, when we embrace our imperfections, when we step into life fully, without guarantees, and without the armor of pretense. Vulnerability is the engine that drives courage, empathy, creativity, and transformation. Every tear shed in honesty, every fear spoken aloud, every moment of authenticity is a moment of power. Every time you let someone see the real you, without masks or pretenses, you reclaim authority over your life. You shift from being controlled by fear to being guided by purpose. You move from survival to presence. You move from isolation to connection. And so, the hidden strength in vulnerability is not a paradox to avoid. It is a force to embrace. It is not the absence of courage, but the very source of it. It is not weakness, but the foundation upon which resilience, creativity, and authenticity are built. It is the quiet power that grows every time we dare to open our hearts, every time we allow ourselves to be seen, every time. We live fully and honestly from the moment we are born. We are taught to separate ourselves from what is uncomfortable. We are encouraged to embrace what is beautiful, acceptable, and approved, and to reject what is messy, inconvenient, or socially unacceptable. We learn to hide our flaws, our fears, our anger, and our shame. We are told that some parts of ourselves are good while others are bad, and that the bad parts must be discarded. But life does not operate in absolutes. Growth does not come from rejection. It comes from integration. Integration is the process of bringing all parts of yourself into harmony, the light, and the dark, the pride and the shame, the confident self and the insecure self. It is the acknowledgement that every part of you, even the parts you have been taught to reject, contains wisdom, power, and potential. When you reject a part of yourself, you deny your wholeness. You fragment your energy. You live a partial life, always striving to be something other than what you truly are. Think of a puzzle. If even a single piece is missing, the picture is incomplete. You cannot achieve clarity, strength, or purpose if you deny essential pieces of your own being. The parts of you that you fear, that you call ugly or unworthy, are the missing pieces. They carry lessons about yourself, about your desires, about your boundaries, and about your resilience. To reject them is to remain incomplete, to walk through life carrying gaps you may not even recognize. Integration is not easy. It requires courage because it asks you to face what you have spent a lifetime avoiding. It asks you to look at your anger without shame, to acknowledge your jealousy without guilt, to embrace your sadness without fear. It asks you to see that the impulses and emotions you consider weaknesses are actually signals. Signals that guide you towards self-understanding, authenticity, and empowerment. Each rejected part of you is like a locked door, and integration is the act of turning the key. When you integrate, you reclaim your power. Every emotion you feel, every instinct you notice, and every hidden desire you uncover becomes a tool rather than a threat. Integration does not mean acting on every impulse without thought, nor does it mean excusing harmful behavior. It means understanding yourself so deeply that you can choose consciously, act wisely, and respond authentically. When you understand your darkness, you no longer fear it. And when you understand your light, you no longer inflate it with pride or superiority. Consider the people you admire, those who radiate confidence, wisdom, and strength. What sets them apart is not that they are flawless or without struggle. It is that they have integrated their contradictions, their failures, and their fears into a coherent, authentic self. They have faced the parts of themselves that society or their upbringing told them to reject, and in doing so they discovered balance, resilience, and clarity. Their power lies in wholeness, not in perfection. Integration also transforms relationships. When you integrate your rejected parts, you become more empathetic, less judgmental, and more capable of authentic connection. You stop projecting your insecurities onto others, stop fearing their judgment, and start engaging with honesty. You recognize that everyone carries shadows, that everyone struggles with self-rejection, and that compassion is born not from perfection but from understanding. By integrating yourself, you create a ripple effect of acceptance and authenticity in the world around you. The process of integration is a journey. It begins with self-awareness, noticing the parts of yourself you habitually reject. Then comes acknowledgement, giving yourself permission to feel, explore, and understand these parts without judgment. Finally comes acceptance, allowing these aspects of yourself to coexist with your strengths, your successes, and your values. This process requires patience because it is ongoing. Every day brings new opportunities to reject or integrate. Every challenge, every mistake, every uncomfortable emotion is an invitation to become whole. Integration is also the source of creativity and innovation. The rejected aspects of your mind, the unconventional ideas, the fears, the intense emotion, when acknowledged and harnessed, fuel imagination, originality, and insight, many of the most groundbreaking. Thinkers and artists achieved greatness because they did not reject what others called flaws. They transformed them into tools for creation. In the same way, your own rejected parts can become your secret source of energy, guidance, and inspiration. When you practice integration over rejection, you stop living in fragments. You stop fearing yourself. You stop denying your potential. And you stop being controlled by shame or guilt. You start to move through the world with coherence, strength, and presence. Every part of you, even the parts you once called ugly, unwanted, or unacceptable, becomes an ally. Rather than an adversary, there is a quiet power in the act of accepting yourself exactly as you are. It is a power that does not shout, does not seek approval, and does not depend on comparison. Yet it is one of the most transformative forces a human being can access. Many people spend their entire lives chasing validation, striving to be admired, or trying to fit into molds that were never designed for them. They believe that power comes from perfection, from achievements, from recognition. But true, enduring power begins with one simple act: accepting yourself fully, without reservation. Self-acceptance is not complacency. It is not resignation. It does not mean ignoring areas where growth is needed or excusing harmful behaviors. Rather, it is the conscious choice to embrace every aspect of who you are, the strengths, the weaknesses, the contradictions, the insecurities, and even the flaws you once wished could disappear. When you accept yourself, you stop wasting energy on fighting your own nature. You stop trying to hide, compare, or overcompensate. You stop giving your power away to fear, doubt, and societal judgment. Think of self-acceptance as a foundation. A building cannot stand strong without a stable base, and your life cannot reach its fullest potential without internal stability. When you accept yourself, you create that foundation. You recognize your inherent value, independent of achievement, appearance, or approval. And with that recognition comes freedom, the freedom to act authentically, to take risks, to pursue your passions, and to face challenges with resilience. Authentic power is born in the space where acceptance meets action. Consider the way many people live their lives in disguise. They mask their emotions, suppress their desires, and perform a version of themselves that they believe others will admire. They measure success by external standards and define worth through approval. But no amount of external validation can replace the confidence and strength that arise from self-acceptance. When you stop needing the world to affirm you, you reclaim authority over your own life. You no longer bend to fit expectations. You shape your world from the clarity of your own truth. Self-acceptance also cultivates courage. It takes bravery to look in the mirror and say, I am enough, right here, right now, with all that I am. It takes bravery to admit mistakes, acknowledge fears, and embrace your imperfections. And paradoxically, that courage amplifies your power. People who accept themselves do not seek to dominate or control, they inspire. Their presence carries a sense of calm confidence because they are not torn between who they are and who they think they should be. Authentic power does not demand attention, it commands it effortlessly through integrity and self-possession. Another aspect of self-acceptance is the liberation it brings from comparison. When you stop measuring yourself against others, you stop being trapped by envy, resentment, and self-doubt. Comparison is a thief of energy. It distracts you from your own potential and your own journey. Self-acceptance redirects the energy inward toward growth, creativity, and mastery. It allows you to explore your unique strengths and contributions without the distortion of external pressure. And in doing so, you step into a power that is rare, unshakable, and deeply rooted. Self-acceptance is also intimately connected to emotional resilience. Life will always present challenges, disappointments, and setbacks. When you have internalized your worth and embraced yourself fully, you face adversity from a place of stability rather than fear. You no longer crumble under criticism, rejection, or failure because your value is not contingent on outcomes, it is inherent. In this space, every setback becomes a lesson, every failure a step toward mastery, and every obstacle an opportunity to exercise the power that comes from knowing and accepting yourself. Moreover, self-acceptance allows you to show up authentically in your relationships. When you embrace your own complexity, you are able to accept the complexity of others. You stop seeking approval, you stop manipulating perceptions, and you stop projecting your insecurities onto those around you. Instead, you connect from a place of honesty, empathy, and clarity. Authentic relationships flourish in the presence of self-acceptance because they are rooted in truth rather than pretense. Finally, self-acceptance unlocks creativity and personal expression. When you stop censoring yourself to fit norms or expectations, your ideas, passions, and talents emerge unfiltered. Your contributions are not diluted by fear of judgment, and your actions carry the authenticity that attracts inspiration, influence, and impact. True power lies not in conformity, but in the courage to be yourself fully, to embrace all aspects of your being, and to act in alignment with your inner truth. Every human being carries a shadow, a part of themselves that they do not fully recognize, understand, or accept. It is the side of you that feels uncomfortable, the impulses you suppress, the emotions you deny, and the memories you push away. Most people spend their lives running from their shadow, trying to hide it behind masks of civility, perfection, or distraction. But here is the profound truth. The shadow is not an enemy. It is a source of power, insight, and transformation waiting to be discovered. Shadow work is the courageous act of turning inward, facing the hidden parts of yourself, and bringing them into the light of consciousness. It is the process of examining the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that you have long ignored or judged. Many avoid this work because it is uncomfortable. It asks us to confront anger, fear, envy, and shame the very aspects of ourselves we were told to suppress. Yet transformation is not found in avoidance. It is found in engagement. By facing what we have hidden, we reclaim control over it, and in doing so, we reclaim ourselves. Imagine a tree growing in a forest. Its roots extend deep into the earth, unseen, tangled, and sometimes blocked by rocks or obstacles. The tree cannot grow tall or bear fruit unless its roots are healthy and nourished. Shadow work is like tending to those roots. It involves digging into the depths of your inner life, uncovering the buried emotions and hidden patterns that have been influencing your behavior without your awareness. The deeper you go, the stronger your foundation becomes, the taller and more vibrant you grow. One of the first steps in shadow work is acknowledgement. This requires honesty. You must be willing to recognize the parts of yourself that you have denied: the jealousy when a friend succeeds, the anger when you feel disrespected, the self-doubt that undermines your confidence. Acknowledgement does not mean acting on every impulse or condoning harmful behavior. It means noticing, naming, and accepting these aspects of yourself as real, as human, and as worthy of attention. The next step is understanding. Why do these hidden parts exist? What are they trying to teach you? Every fear, every impulse, every suppressed desire carries a message. Perhaps your anger is signaling that a boundary has been crossed. Perhaps your self-doubt is pointing to unmet needs or unhealed wounds. Perhaps your envy is highlighting your deepest aspirations. By exploring these hidden messages, you gain insight into your motivations, patterns, and potential. Shadow work transforms confusion into clarity, weakness into strength, and suffering into understanding. Integration is the final transformative stage. When you fully acknowledge and understand your shadow, you can integrate into your conscious self. You no longer need to fight, suppress, or hide these aspects. Instead, you channel their energy in constructive ways. The courage you once feared can fuel bold decisions. The intensity of your emotions can enhance empathy and connection. The creativity that emerged from your unrest can lead to innovation and personal expression. Integration turns the parts of you that were once sources of shame into sources of power. Shadow work also profoundly impacts your relationships. When you face your own darkness, you become less judgmental and more compassionate toward others. You recognize that every person carries their own shadow, their own struggles, and their own fears. You stop projecting your insecurities onto those around you, stop blaming others for your discomfort, and begin to engage from a place of awareness and empathy. Your connections deepen, your influence expands, and your capacity for authentic leadership grows. Many of history's most impactful thinkers, artists, and leaders have practiced shadow work, consciously or unconsciously. They tapped into the hidden, suppressed parts of themselves to fuel creativity, courage, and insight. They did not shy away from the darkness within. They explored it, learned from it, and transformed it into something meaningful. This is a reminder that your shadow is not a curse to endure, but a tool to master, a hidden reservoir of energy and potential waiting for recognition. Shadow work is a lifelong practice. Every challenge, every setback, every uncomfortable emotion is an opportunity to explore deeper layers of your inner life. Every time you resist, you limit your growth. Every time you embrace, you expand it. By consistently engaging with your shadow, you cultivate resilience, self-awareness, and authentic power. You move from living reactively driven by unconscious fears and suppressed impulses to living consciously, guided by insight, wisdom, and intention. Ultimately, transformation through shadow work is the journey of becoming whole. It is the process of reclaiming all parts of yourself, not just the parts that are easy to love. It is the act of turning the hidden, feared, or rejected aspects of your psyche into allies. It is the recognition that true power does not lie in perfection, denial, or avoidance, but in embracing the full spectrum of who you are and allowing it to guide, strengthen, and transform your life.